Throughout the many years of competitive Valorant, many stars have risen to the top and stayed there. Tenz, Derke, Aspas, Cned, Forsaken. Most of these players rose to the top at a young age. It's rare to see a player take the limelight midway through their playing career. However, one man went from zero to hero at the age of 24 and led his country and region to its first international win. This is the story of T3xture. T3xture is from Korea, and like a lot of different Korean Valorant pros, he made his start in competitive FPS in Overwatch. And like many duelists who came from Overwatch, he played DPS. What I could find, T3xture was not a pro Overwatch player, but was mainly a high-ranked player. And he would stream himself playing Overwatch under the moniker T3xture. T3xture would first stream Valorant on May 1st, 2020, a month after the release of the beta, averaging 32 viewers. He would then stream Valorant again a couple of weeks later, with some Overwatch mixed in. T3xture wouldn't really stream Valorant again until October of 2020. Eventually, after playing a lot of ranked, T3xture would be picked up by his first team, Damwon Gaming, alongside Reezy, Secret, Eugene, and Hate. The team would first compete in the VCT 2020 Korea Stage 1 Challengers Open Qualifier. They would go 3-0 in the group stage against two unsigned teams, Physical and Hurts Like This, and one signed team, Ryu Gaming. In playoffs, Damwon and T3xture would secure their spot at the main event by beating Fatality 2-0. T3xture would finish the qualifier with an average ACS of 267, the fourth highest. At Challengers Stage 1, they were placed in Group A, along World Game Star, Global Esports, and ZF Gaming. His first game against World Game Star would be a swift 2-0, with him again at the top of the scoreboard. Then they would play against ZF Gaming and win again 2-0. Finally playing Global Esports, ending 1-1. Back in the day, these tournaments would not be best of 3. Instead, if it went 1-1, it would be a draw. They topped their group, meaning they qualified straight to Challengers 2, which was their chance to reach Masters. Damwon would see two players to be changed, Hate and Reezy to be swapped for Chibab and Kelly. Placed in Group T, Damwon would not win a single game, drawing 2 and losing 1, meaning they were last in their group, not qualifying for Masters Korea yet. Challengers 3 would come right round the corner for T3xture. However, this time, Damwon would smash their group, winning every single game, ending top of their group, qualifying for the Korea Regional Masters and to a LAN. Heading into Masters 1, Damwon would be grouped against Team Miyaho, Prince, and F4Q. Their first match would be against F4Q, a team that they had previously beaten in Challengers 3. The match would end in a swift 2-0. No surprise, T3xture would be at the top of the scoreboard. The next two matches would see Damwon lose and win, placing second in their group, qualifying for playoffs. T3xture would end up being the highest rated player of the group stage. The first matchup in playoffs would be against, well, Vision Strikers, and this was the Vision Strikers that had not lost a game yet. And those who know their Valorant history know they wouldn't lose to Damwon, and it wasn't even close.
Lockdown going down as well. Only Kelly left over, and oh, he does get taken out. That is going to be that. Damwon will be eliminated.
Stage 2 challengers would be the qualifier for Masters Reykjavik, the first international LAN in Valorant history. Damwon would again swap out players, Gen.G coming in for Chibab. 4 groups this time, Damwon would still be placed in Group B. They would end up coming second in their group, qualifying through the lower bracket. T3xture again would see high ratings in the group stage. Their first matchup in playoffs would be against a familiar opponent, F4Q, winning this game in a close 2-1. They would then play against Rio Company, and once again win 2-1. T3xture was just one game away from qualifying to the first international LAN. Surprisingly, they would not face Vision Strikers in the final, but U-turn.
Smoke zoning this out. The Aldrome comes out here for the peak.
Yeah, to shoot it down. Kelly coming around the corner. Nebula is up, but Solo in a beautiful position, takes on Shanghai.
Ooh, the spray transfer is sick.
Yeah, another one on Eugene, and that is going to be that. New turn closes it out, and they are.
Damwon didn't stand a chance, losing 0-3 in the best of 5. T3xture was so close to an international, but he was so far. However, he still put a good performance in this best of 5. Even though T3xture did not make it to Masters Reykjavik, he still garnered some international acclaim. Shroud even shouted him out, which was a big deal back in the day, because he had the biggest watch party at the time.
It's the 3 letter names.
Dude, DWG, is that with the the jet, not temperature, texture. That's T3xture, right? He's on DWG, T3xture?
Yeah, you're right.
Dude, ooh, that man. I was rooting for them to make it here. I was rooting for him.
You must watch that scene a lot. That's insane.
T3xture is incredible. He's arguably the best jet, in my opinion.
Rolling into stage 3, Damwon would again swap out players. Kelly was out for intro. Looking like stage 2, stage 3 groups would be the same, with Damwon qualifying second by winning the lower bracket. During their lower bracket game against Noble Experience, T3xture put up one of the best performances of all time on LAN, going 33-9 with an ACS of 555. Damwon would play against Newturn, a team they just lost to in the last qualifier, in the quarter-final. This game would be extremely close, Haven going 13-11 to Damwon, 13-11 on split back to Newturn, and an overtime barn burner on the last map going 15-13 to Damwon. T3xture didn't even need to carry this game. The semi-final and qualification game was against F4Q. Well, sadly, again, Damwon would lose 2-1 and not qualify for an international once again. The next event was Last Chance Qualifier, and as by the name, this was the last chance for Damwon and T3xture to make it to an international event in 2021. A long double elimination style bracket meant that you needed a good start in order to make your chances of qualifying more plausible. Well, a first round loss to Global made this a lot harder. But match by match, Damwon managed to make their way all the way to the lower bracket final against Full Sense. This would not go in Damwon's favour, and they would lose to Full Sense, who would eventually go and qualify to Champions. T3xture was so close again to reaching an international, he just missed at the last hurdle. 2021 may not have been his year to get there, but maybe 2022 was. During the off-season, Damwon swapped out players again. Eugene and Secret were out, and Exi and Esperanza were in. The first event of the season, Stage 1, would go decently well. After qualifying pretty easily, T3xture and Damwon would go 5-2 in the group stage, finishing third behind Onslayers and DRX. Playoffs would see them make it to the lower round 2, where they would lose to Holy Moly, ending up 4th. Only the top spot would make it to Masters Reykjavik, which was claimed by DRX. Stage 2 would be another chance to make it to an international for T3xture. This time, Masters Copenhagen. Shanghai was out. Bangnam was in. Deja vu would occur, but they would end the group stage 5-2 behind Onslayers and DRX again. This time, T3xture would claim the group stage MVP with an average ACS of 271. In playoffs, Damwon would make it to the upper final, but would end up losing to DRX 2-0. They would then lose in the lower final BO5 to Maru Gaming 3-1. The last event of the year would be the East Asia Last Chance Qualifier, another chance for T3xture to reach champions, this time in Istanbul. They would play their first game against Crazy Raccoons, but they would lose 2-1. In the lower bracket game against Chinese team Global Esports Club, they would end up losing this game 2-0, and they would not go on a lower bracket run. A sad end of the year for T3xture and Damwon, and on average, lower placings than 2021, and again, no international appearances. However, T3xture had still proved himself as a top-tier duelist. So, was he ready for the new VCT system? Going into franchising, T3xture was picked up by the Indian-based org Global Esports. Prior to franchising, Global was an entirely Indian national team. They still kept 2 of their Indian players, however, SK Rossi and Lightning Fast, and moved to a 7-man international roster, which included T3xture. And the other players were Aaron, Bazzi, Monyet, and Ronsky. The first event of franchising was VCT Lock-In, where Global would play without Ronsky. T3xture's first match in franchising was against Team Vitality of EMEA. This would be T3xture's first international LAN, so would the pressure get to him? Well, they would get smacked in the first map, 13-4, but they managed to pull it back and win the next game on Pearl, 13-8. But they would get dismantled on the third map, Lotus, 13-6. Because of Lock-In's format, if you lost one game, you were out of the tournament, so they were gone. The Pacific League would be the first time that T3xture would play against other teams from Asia on LAN on a regular basis. But his first game would be against a Korean team, T1. The game would end 2-1 to T1. The only map Global would pick up would be Haven, where T3xture had a monster performance. It would take until week 4 for Global to get their first win, where the game would go 2-0 in Global's favour against Talon. One of the key factors here is that T3xture swapped roles to Sentinel instead of Duelist, which he had played his whole career, where SK Rossi and Lightning Fast would take over the role of being new Duelist for the team. Due to this being their first win in the league, this could be a sign, so T3xture would stay on the Sentinel role for the remainder of the VCT system. The remainder of the split would not go so well for Global, winning 2 out of the next 5 games against a familiar opponent, Gen.G, and DFM, who lost to everyone anyways. However, one of the games we were gifted to one of the greatest VLR screenshots of all time, so thanks to Global and PRX for that. They would end the split 3-6 in total, which means they would not qualify for the regional playoffs, and had no chance to reach Masters Tokyo. Even though T3xture was not in his comfort role for half the season, his stats were not bad, with an average ACS of 219 in the regular season, while familiar territory would loom upon T3xture, an LCQ, a chance to reach champions once again.
Gets a punish, they're breaking him down, it's all on Bazzi. He's got to clear out 2 more people to tap into the spike, the shorty gonna be drawn in.
A first round loss to RRQ to end Global's year early. T3xture would have to wait many months to play in the VCT circuit again. T3xture's year on Global had reduced his stocks as a top tier player and duelist a lot. However, Gen.G saw an opportunity and signed him as their duelist for the upcoming 2024 season. A newly revamped roster which took players from all across the Korean scene, only keeping Meteor from the 2023 roster. Alongside Meteor and T3xture was Munchkin, who'd played on T1 last year, Lakia, who had a stint in challenges in the previous year, and Karon, who was scouted from the Korean ranked ladder. Some saw this team as a ragtag bunch, and they weren't even considered as the best Korean team in the Pacific League. But this team was carefully crafted by Solo and HSK, so who knows how high this team could reach. Kickoff was here, and it was the qualifier for Masters Madrid. Gen.G were not really the favourite to qualify for this event, as there was only 2 spots per regional league, especially when you had teams like PaperX, DRX and T1 who had consistently qualified to international events in the past. Placed into Group C with RRQ and PaperX, it was not going to be easy, but they managed to beat RRQ in the first game 2-1, where T3xture had a strong game.
It's got too much. T3xture just had to whale him around and do it again. That's a good start. Finds one. Ellie Moore taken down. The play now coming through. Looks like he thought maybe they had faked their way back over towards the B side. Pain pushes the wall. Slowly creeping up. They're playing together though. Can he get them both? Spots the gun barrel. 1. T3xture. Is it back to back? 4Ks. Yes.
They would then falter to PaperX in the next game, but they would beat RRQ again in the rematch to be placed in the grueling play-in stage. Even though the play-in stage was very difficult, Gen.G managed to win both games against Zeta and Team Secret, meaning they qualified for the single elimination playoff bracket. They'd face DRX, a team that T3xture had never been able to beat in his career, with all the iterations of the core. The first map of Bind would go to overtime, and Gen.G would take the game 14-12, with T3xture putting up a monster performance of 28 kills. Gen.G would then go on to win the next map 13-8.
T3xture on his stacks from media with the Sheriff, able to find his head. Uh-oh. Considering dropping down, but no T3xture. Over at 12! Picks up all three to put them 6 feet under! Gen.G.
This meant that they qualified for Masters Madrid, and T3xture had reached his first Masters event in the history of his playing career. The icing on the cake would be the fact that they'd win the game against PRX in the grand final, winning kickoff for Pacific. Heading into the first Masters of the year, Gen.G was still not considered one of the favourites, even though they had won their regional event. In the Swiss stage, they were seeded against Loud, a team that had always been feared at the international stage. However, Loud had lost their star player Aspas to Leviathan. The game would go to 3 maps, but Gen.G would end up winning the game 2-1.
Denied. He doesn't get the full picture. Now T3xture. Oh, that's clean from T3xture. 2 big hits, 2 headshots. Spike dropped and predicts 2Es just as well. Come on, T3xture, get another. Show us what you got.
T3xture with the highest rating for Gen.G in the best of 3. They would be seeded against EGG. The bad start on the first map for Gen.G, but the next 2 maps would be completely turned around, where Gen.G would dominate 13-5 and 13-6, meaning they qualified as one of the highest seeds into playoffs.
This should be an interesting one. It's right off rip, both are used, and T3xture! A double kill, but there's still one man standing, not anymore. This is T3xture's round. A mistake, and what was it? You know what? Somehow swinging. It's interesting, it won't matter though. He started this round. Aids G2 lands this shot. T3xture on 45, in a lot of trouble. Emerging from the smoke element of surprise! How has he gotten all 3? He was 45, now 15 HP after the plant. It all depends on where nobody's looking. The wrong way! T3xture's got...
Gen.G was now not a dark horse, but possibly a favourite to win the whole thing. They would face a familiar foe in the first round, PaperX. Unlike the last time they faced him, which was a 3-0 affair to Gen.G, they would not drop a single map this time, going 2-0 and looking pretty strong throughout. The upper final would be against Sentinels, a team consisting of a Champions winner, Sassy, and a Masters winner, Tenz.
This all makes sense. For T3xture to be here, though, oh, they'd have to be ever vigilant to see it, and now he's got an opportunity to trade it back further. It's huge from T3xture, completely bamboozling them. Tenz.
It started promising for Gen.G with a 13-5 win on Split, but Sentinels would hit right back, taking Lotus 13-7. Gen.G would dismantle Sentinels on Breeze 13-3, blasting them into the grand finals of a VCT event. T3xture's first Masters, and he was in a grand final. To face them in the grand finals would be Sentinels again. The crowd was against them. Their team was less experienced on paper. At this level of stage, would they crumble in the long best-of-5 series? Breeze would be the first map. This game would be closer than last time, but still would go in Gen.G's favour 13-8. The next map would be extremely close, with Sentinels clinching the win 14-12 in overtime. A strong next map for Gen.G of Ascent, going 13-8 in their favour. T3xture was now just 1 map away from becoming a world champion. But they wouldn't do it in the next map, where Sentinels win it 13-10. The final map of Icebox would be T3xture's last chance in this game to become a world champion. But as the rounds went by, it looked clear that Gen.G had run out of steam.
Standing his ground, Knife just a little bit too late here, they can feel it now, pressure mounting, Gen.G stacking, but they will topple, they will fall, the rifles are too good, 1,000 days and counting, but how much can one man do? First one found, second one not there.
And well, Pacific this time would not lift their first international trophy, and Sentinels would take the series. T3xture didn't have a crazy strong tournament, but still put up a respectable average ACS through all his games he played. The next event for T3xture and the team would be Stage 1 of Pacific, a chance to reach Masters Shanghai, the first international event in China. Gen.G was placed in the Alpha group, which meant they would play against the teams in the Omega group. Maybe due to a lack of downtime and burnout, Gen.G were not super dominant in the group stage, going 3-3, but they still managed to top their group due to map differential. First seed of their group going into playoffs, they would only need one win to reach Masters Shanghai. They would face T1 in the upper final. In a big upset, Gen.G would lose his game, meaning that T1 qualified for Masters Shanghai first. The lower bracket would be, well, the Korea El Clasico, DRX versus Gen.G. The game would go to all 3 maps, but Gen.G would take it on the 3rd map. This meant that Gen.G had qualified to another international. Gen.G would make it to the grand final and lose, but it didn't matter because they had made another international. Going into the tournament, Gen.G knew that the crowd was not going to be behind them. The first round would see Gen.G face Lev, a team that, well, had Aspas. Gen.G would win this game, and on the map of Lotus, T3xture would dominate. The next game in the Swiss stage would be against FPX, and of course, the Chinese team would have the crowd behind them. The first map would go a long way, a triple overtime, where FPX would take it 16-14. Gen.G would not falter, and they'd recover in the next 2 games, and again T3xture put up a strong performance. They made it again the first seed in the group stage of an international LAN. They would face Fnatic in the first round. A very strong team, and with the most decorated player of all time, Chronicle. The game would be extremely close, going double digits for both teams in all 3 maps. But Gen.G would be victorious, with T3xture of course having a strong performance throughout.
The safety valve. That's the hit, that's a weapon upgraded. That's a swing, that's another one found, and now that's an aid! Force and Chronicle to reposition, to flip the map, to plant the spike. T3xture's on the swing, the shots don't connect. Now a flash in his face, T3xture trying to dance around it, and that's 3 for the duelist.
They would face 100 Thieves in the next game, with the previous champs winning IGL, Boostio.
Pop flash gonna be sent in, Munchkin doing a decent amount of damage. T3xture collecting 2. Cryo smokes in ahead of the 0 point. Into the back to push forward, T3xture putting himself a 3rd, looking for the 4th, looking for the ace.
This game would be close again, but Gen.G would win 2-0, both maps going 13-10. Facing another America's team in the next game, G2. Well, Gen.G and T3xture would continue their hot streak and win this game 2-0.
No way he does it again.
Turn at the ready, cleared out. He nailed that! T3xture! He does not miss those! My Munchkin, but now he's all on his lonesome. Karen in hell, taking some pot shots, trying to challenge the fight, trying to go to the wide swing, and Karen finds it!
On the second map, T3xture would almost drop 30. T3xture was back at a grand final at an international event. This time, they would face Team Heretics, a team who had made it all the way to the final with a super sub, Patty Tech. Map of Breeze would be dominated by Gen.G, 13-6. Icebox was next. Gen.G was up 9-6, a chance to make it 2-0 in the best of 5.
There's not a lot of time here. He's got to hold this. Oh. Is there enough time? It's going to be close. Oh, it's so close!
However, this game would end 39 for Heretics, as Gen.G would not win any more rounds. Ascent would start close, 6-6 in the first half. However, this game would end 39 for Heretics again, where T3xture would not have a strong game. Gen.G was now 1-2 in maps, and they would have to dig really deep if they wanted to claw back this best of 5.
Munchkin has to go, and he has to go now. Even if he gets his kill, surely. Oh my gosh! And just like that, Gen.G finds safe passageway, tucking behind the wall and staying alive. T3xture forced to try to hold the line. Satchel traded. A nade is as well. Karen falls. Lakia on the snap. Benji Fishy dead. They're trying to work their way in and they cannot. And now it's on to Boo.
T3xture would turn up for Lotus, and again in Split, where Heretics were absolutely destroyed. T3xture had done it. After 4 years of playing and 2 international events, he'd become a world champion. The first win for a Korean team, and the first win for Pacific. T3xture would be the finals MVP, and would have the 4th highest average ACS throughout the whole event of 241. I would like to say this was not the end of Gen.G and T3xture's success in 2024. However, after a strong performance in Stage 2, they reached champions in front of a whole crowd at Seoul. But they were placed in the group of death. Strong performance in the first game against Sentinels. This would be the last game they'd win this year. Heretics would get their revenge and beat them, and in the Sentinels rematch, it would not go their way this time, meaning falling out on home soil in the group stage. An anticlimactic end of the year. T3xture had went from someone who seemingly couldn't qualify for an international stage, to at the start of franchising on a team that was completely counted out and placed on a role he hadn't played before, to a team who became one of the most feared and consistent teams in the world, whilst keeping his joyous and whimsical personality.
He's so funny.
Oh man,
I do love T3xture.
Thank you for watching my video all the way through, as this video took me a long time to make. If you want to see more videos like this, why not like and subscribe, and check out some of my other videos.